Okay, so tonight, well, for us it's tonight, for you you're asleep right now, so it's like almost 10 o'clock your time, almost 8 o'clock my time. But I'm about to make dinner, and one of the best parts about this time of year is just all of the fresh vegetables. Now, I've planted myself my own garden, and I'm lucky enough to have some family nearby that also grow a lot of vegetables. And if you think about, Grandma and Grandpa Cunningham, they have a lot of vegetables too. So, yeah, follow along with me and think about if you want to make something similar for dinner one night. So what I have right now is some carrot sticks that I cut up for dinner last night, so I figured might as well use them. And then I've got some whole carrots. Now these aren't like underripe or anything. This is just a type of carrot. So they turn this really kind of beautiful light yellowish beige color. And over here we've got kale. So kale is a type of leafy green, and it's a little bit harder to chew, I guess you can say, compared to like iceberg lettuce or spinach, but it's really, really good for you. And I've got a bunch of green beans I picked from the garden this morning, a yellow squash, and I think this is an Anaheim pepper, so a little bit spicy. And then we've got some garlic and some onion that I'll be cutting up too. Now, one of my favorite things to do whenever I plan out what type of meals I want to make is thinking about eating all the colors of the rainbow in a day. So when I say that, I mean things that naturally grow red, orange, yellow, green, indigo, or purple, essentially. So right here we have just about everything except for blue and red. Now, if I had tomatoes, that would be excellent, but we don't have tomatoes here yet. It's still a bit too early for us, but I feel like over on your side of the country, you might have tomatoes. So think about it. That could be delicious. Alrighty, so what I'm gonna do first is chop up all of my vegetables, put them in my bowl. That way it keeps my countertop nice and clean. And after I chop up all my vegetables, I'll do my onion and then my garlic last. Now, if we go over here, we can see that I have a pretty thick pan that's already on the stove. I've not turned anything on yet, but inside the pan, I have some coconut oil, but you can use olive oil if you want, or even a little bit of butter. I like to use coconut oil because, for one, I like the taste, and two, it's really, really good healthy fats for you. So that helps like with your hair, your skin, your fingernails, all that stuff. So I love using coconut oil. And to go along with my little vegetable medley, kind of like a stovetop ratatouille, I've got rice that I've cooked, but you can also use couscous or maybe even pasta if you want. Now, whenever I cook rice, I don't like it to just be plain. I like to put flavor in the rice when it's cooking. So I've also included some cardamom pods, some allspice, and cloves of garlic because I love garlic. And also it's really good for you. Alrighty, so over here, pan, rice. Looks like the rice is done, so I might actually unplug it. There we go. And in a little bit, I'll turn the stovetop on and get the oil a little warmed up for us, but we don't want to do that quite yet because we don't want the veggies to burn. All right, so first and foremost, we need to pick a knife. So over here, I've got my knife selections, and with chopping vegetables, we don't want to do a serrated edge. These are generally good for things like cantaloupe or sometimes like really big tomatoes. But for chopping veggies, we want to use like a straight edged knife. Now, of course, before you do any of this, please, please, please double check with Mom, Dad, Corey, John to make sure that you A, are allowed to use the knife, or B, have somebody with you making sure you use the knife correctly. So you don't want to just go grab a knife willy-nilly. That is not allowed. So once again, check with Mom, Dad, Corey, John to make sure you can use a knife. All right, so once again, no serration. We want to do a straight one. This one's a bit too big than I think I need, so I think I'll do this lovely knife. All right, so to my cutting board, you always want to cut veggies on a cutting board. You don't want to ruin your countertops or your table. So I want to shift some things a little bit to make it easier for me to cut. And I've got my countertop nice and clean, so it's okay if I put my veggies there. And before I've laid my veggies down, everything's been washed really, really well with running water. Alrighty, so I'll just go and start with my carrot sticks because they're the easiest. Now, if you are using a full carrot, which we'll do soon, same concept, we're just gonna cut essentially perpendicular. So the term perpendicular means, imagine one line going this way, another line going this way. So this is called perpendicular. This is called parallel. So parallel, perpendicular. Think of like a T. And parallel is like train tracks. So T, perpendicular, parallel, train tracks. And with these carrot sticks, rather than cutting them parallel, so we're gonna do perpendicular. So think of a T. So all the carrots are pointing this way, I'm gonna cut this way. And that'll give us some nice tasty chunks. Now whenever I cut anything, I wanna keep my fingers far away from the blade. This is a no-no, do not do this. What we wanna do is always be aware of where the knife is, and being aware of where our fingers are and where our knuckles are and our fingertips. So in this case, I'm going to hold them down far away. See, I don't want the knife anywhere here. I want it out. I do one smooth chop down. That's it, one chop. Move my fingers over more. Down, kind of like a seesaw. Smooth chop. And getting close to my fingers, so I want to be careful. Smooth chop. And here, there's enough space that I don't need to hold on to it. I can just use my knife by itself and use my other hand to smooth chop. That's all we need to do. And once again, I've got this lovely bowl to put all my vegetables in. Oops, dropped a carrot on the kitchen floor. So yeah, put all of our stuff in there. Might as well do the other carrots next. So with these carrots, I think sometimes people forget that you can eat the carrot tops. In fact, they're super tasty. The main thing you want to do though is to make sure you clean in between all of the little like stems really well. That way you don't get dirt and stuff inside. So clean those tops, super nice. Kind of scrub it to get nice and clean. Same thing, the knife is not next to my fingers. And in fact, in this case, I might curl my fingers. That way my tips aren't hitting. So for example, I'll get nice and close. If I have the knife right next to my knuckles, see how it can't cut me? Now, when we cut, we don't want it to be this close anyways, but just to give you an example, we want to make sure our fingertips are never flat or near the blade. So if you're a little nervous, you can always hold the carrot towards the end, and we just cut down, move up, move the carrot, down, up, move the carrot, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, and just keep pushing that carrot on through. And when I cut, it's like a whoosh, 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 rather than a pop, 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 because that's dangerous and you don't have control. So you always want to have contact nice and smooth with the knife like that. All right, so I'm gonna go from the carrot to the stem. And these are gonna be little pieces, and notice that I move my fingers back as the knife gets closer to me. hand. If you see anything dead like this, if you have a garbage disposal, put it there. If you have a compost bucket, put it in that or in the trash. Yeah, with cutting vegetables, it's pretty fun. The main thing is just being super aware at all times, once again, where your fingers are, knowing that it's not super close to the blade, and not going bop, 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 because that doesn't do anything. So even when I'm doing rough cuts like this, I'm still whoosh, whoosh, lifting the knife, moving my fingers. That way, I never run the risk of, well, cutting my fingers off, because that would be a bummer. Okay, so gently scooping carrots into here. And to save some time, I'm going to do these at the same time. So I'll go and line up the tips, same thing. So whoosh, 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 as I'm moving my fingers back. Do it a bit quicker. And with these cuts, they don't have to be perfect by any means, because they'll be cooking for a while, and especially with like harder vegetables like carrots, they'll need to kind of take their time cooking through. So with like carrots and potatoes, sweet potatoes, some squashes, those will need a little bit more time than our like leafy greens or our beans, that type of thing. Now these guys are a little tough, so what I'm doing is pushing down, putting my hand flat on the top of the knife because this is not sharp, and helping to push down. Now once again, I'm not putting my fingertips anywhere near the sharp end. I'm just right on that flat edge. Now do not do this if one of the knives is sharp on both sides. That would be a disaster. And then you'd have one hand, and imagine what that life would be like. I'm sure you could have some cool tricks. Maybe, I don't know, you learn a neat yo-yo thing. I don't know. Either way, don't chop off your fingers. That's the moral of the story. All right, scoop all this up. Now with all these greens, they're gonna cook down a lot. So in the pan, they might look like super fluffy, and you might think, oh my gosh, there's too much. Just wait, it'll cook down to like a third or a fourth of the size sometimes. Alrighty, so next I think I'll do, let's do, might as well do beans because they're here. Alright, so with a lot of these beans, when I picked them, I made sure to try to keep the stem off, but sometimes it doesn't work out that way. So you want to be mindful of beans that are picked clean like this versus ones that still have the stem, because this is like really woody and you can't really bite through it. So as you pick your green bean, gonna roughly chop big old chunks, maybe like the size of part of your pinky. And as you chop, also look at if there's any stem left or something. So yeah, with this meal, there's a lot of green. Oh yeah, here we have a stem, so we don't want that. We'll set that aside. And I feel like when we eat the rainbow in a day, it's always best to have green be like the dominant, so like the most important or the most frequent color, just because green things are generally super duper good for you. So I eat a ton of green things a day. Usually what you want to stay away from are things that are like white. So those tend to be a bit more starchy. So think about like potatoes, the insides can be pretty white. But if we think of like a sweet potato or a yam, the insides are like a bright, I'm just gonna chop all of these together, save time. The insides are like a bright orange. All right, so once again, to save time, I want to chop all of these together. You don't have to, because it can be a little tricky if you're still not accustomed to knives. But what I'm doing right now is to make sure I get rid of these little stems. That way I don't accidentally put them in our veggie mix. Looks good. And if there are some stems, that's fine. It's not the end of the world. You can pick them out. So bunch them together, kind of like the carrots. Whoosh, whoosh, being mindful of where the blade is compared to my finger. Whoosh, and hand on top, and maybe this one a little bit smaller. Scoop this up. And because we're getting close, like halfway done with chopping veggies, I'm gonna go ahead and turn the stovetop on to like medium heat to start heating up our pan that, once again, it has coconut oil in it and a little bit of salt and pepper too, just because. All right, so go to this, and I'm gonna do like a solid 5. Now, before you do anything with the stove, please, please, please double check with Mom, Dad, Corey, John to make sure that A, you are allowed to use the stove, and B, that you're not setting it too high. So please do that first. So once again, stovetop is on, medium heat to slowly warm up the oil while I come back over here and chop the rest of my veggies. Toss these guys over. All right, so I'm gonna do my beautiful yellow zucchini. So with zucchini, you don't wanna eat this nub, you don't wanna eat this nub, but everything else is good to go. So what I'm gonna do first, straight down, just cut off the tiniest little nub and swirl it around, chop that off. So this is technically the stem, so we don't wanna eat that. And with zucchini, you can cut them exactly like this if you want, or to get like smaller bites, what I like to do is hold it very carefully, put the knife through, and you can, actually for you all, this isn't smart. If you're getting used to the knife, lay down flat like a hot dog bun, put the knife carefully in the center, making sure that the knife stays wonderfully parallel, right, with the sides. Press down using your fingers just as a guide to help it not move as the knife moves. And we just kind of inch the knife along until we have 2 pieces. All right, so to save time, I'm gonna lay these parallel side by side, and I'm gonna go ahead and cut slices, same concept, just bump, bump, lift, bump, bump, lift, bump, bump, and continue on down with my lovely yellow half moons till I get towards the end. Once again, being super mindful of where my fingers are. If my fingers are too close, I can just take away my hand, do my final chop. There we go. Gather all my veggies, put them here. Bum, bum, bum. And next I'll do my pepper. Now with hot peppers, the spicy part is really in the seeds, and it's because of something called, I think, capsaicin, I want to say, but essentially it's a type of oil that coats the seeds, and that's what makes peppers hot. So sure, like the inside and the skin might be spicy, but the stuff that makes that burning sensation, that's in the seeds. So if you don't want something spicy, get rid of the seeds. Now I can already smell this as I'm cutting, and it doesn't smell super spicy, so I think I'll be good. And plus I like spicy things. So we set the little hat with the stem to the side. And if you're using hot peppers, be super mindful. You wash your hands very, very well as soon as you are finished cutting them. And do not touch your eyes, do not touch your nose, do not touch your private parts or anybody else, because it can cause not only a lot of pain, but also like actual damage. So be a responsible chef. Wash your hands before, just because it's smart practice, but especially after you cut anything spicy. Now once again, these bad Johnnies here, really not that spicy, almost like a bell pepper, so I think I'll be fine. But if they were like a jalapeno, yeah, definitely would be washing my hands. Alrighty, so next I'll do my my kale, and with kale, the center stem is kind of woody, so I'll do that chop that a bit smaller. And then with the leaves, these leaves can be a little chewy. So that's one of the reasons why we can put the kale in with all the other veggies, because they'll cook at relatively the same length. But if we were using something like spinach, we would wait till like the very last minute to add it. Now with these leaves, you know, they're gonna be spread out. You can just shoop, crunch them to a little bunch. Once again, be mindful of my fingers. Cut them that way. Add them to the bowl. And I'm gonna double check my oil to make sure it's not too hot. It's getting there. I'm gonna turn it down just a little bit, that way I don't burn anything. We're getting close. Now I'm gonna add my other kale chunks. So bunch them together just to save some time. Once again, being super mindful of where my fingers are, and you can certainly do this one leaf at a time. But for me, I am in the need for speed, so I will do all of them. All right, so next we're gonna do our onion. So with onion, I recommend doing maybe like half or a quarter onion. So with this, they're already cut into slices. You can see here, this has a skin on it, so you want to take the skin off until it's just like nice and smooth, nice and light. And with the onion, you can do it nice and chunky. Now I love onion, so I'm gonna do a lot because it's delicious. All right, swap, 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 swap. And we'll do this other piece, so it'll be equivalent to like half of an onion that's going in. And we'll wait on the garlic for a little bit later because garlic burns a lot easier than all this stuff, and burnt garlic tastes gross. So we don't want to burn the garlic. We'll wait till later. All right. Oh, we got some beans. Some rogue beans. All right. And there we go. Our bowl. Our clean cutting board, except for the nubbins. And carry it on over. We can see that the oil has some bubbles in it. That means it's nice and hot. Now we're gonna slowly transfer all of this into the pot. And we wanna be very careful because we don't want any oil to splash up. So get the bowl really close. We're not gonna throw it in. We're just gonna layer it on top. And if you need help doing this, ask Mom, Dad, Corey, John for help. There's no shame in that. So we already hear the sizzling, we hear the bubbling, and we're gonna let that wilt a little bit so kind of get droopy, and then we'll go in and we'll stir it a little bit and keep doing that to like coat everything in some of the oil and allow things to cook a bit evenly. And then after that, we'll come back and we'll add the garlic. And then I've also got some spices over here that we might add too. Still thinking about it. But all right, so we got the veggies in the pot, let it wilt, we'll stir it a bit, and then I'll turn this back on. All right, I'll see you in. It's been about 7 minutes now, so we can see that this has already started to wilt and reduce in size a little bit. Now I did turn up the heat to like medium high, just because it looked like it needed a little bit more of a boost. Do a little stir. Now with pans like this, you always want to use like a wooden spoon or plastic, never metal, because metal can scratch the bottom of the pan and ruin it forever. So don't do that. So wood or plastic, you're good to go. I like wood just because you don't risk melting it, which might happen. So if you have wood, you can just lean it on the side like this, or put it in like a little spoon holder or a paper towel if you want, on a plate, whatever. But definitely do that if you are using plastic. But either way, no metal, only wood or plastic. All right, with this reducing a little bit, come back over here, and it's time to add our garlic. Now with garlic cloves, they can be a little tricky to peel, and the best way to do it is, do you see this little like nubbin? It's like a rough edge. This is the bottom of the clove, and what we want to do is cut all of these off because they're pretty hard. Now once again, we want to be mindful of where our fingers are with our knife. So I'm going to move it very carefully, and that down slice action, once again, we don't ever want to do chop, chop, chop. That is bad. We're doing a seesaw motion. So we cut off that side, and I've got a few cloves of garlic just because I like garlic and it's good for you. A little chop. And here we have like a bigger cluster of like the interior of a clove. So we can definitely see like the whole root system there. And we're gonna just chop all of it off, move it over here. And what we want to do to get the skin off is, you see how it's shaped almost like, I don't know, a little boat maybe? It's like cupped. We want to flip it over so the round side is facing up. And taking the flat part of our knife, we lay it on top, flat palm, and we crush it. So see how we crushed it into little bits? By doing that, we release the skin, and then we got our perfect little garlic. So once again, rounded side up, the flat of our knife, nowhere near the sharp part. We're just flattening our hand so our palm is flat against the blade, and big old smoosh. And that releases the skin. And then we'll do this whole cluster. So same concept. I'm gonna press really hard down because doing a whole cluster like that, they kind of want to stick together. And we'll just kind of release it from the skin like so. If you have a little bit of like this papery skin left, that's totally fine. It's not the end of the world. It just doesn't really cook down super well. All right, so we got all of our garlic chunks released from the skin, and what we're gonna do is just lightly chop it. Now if you have like canned garlic in oil that's already like chopped, that works fine too, but the best way to make this is with fresh garlic. So what I'm doing is, you see, like fingers flat on the top of the knife just to keep it steady, to kind of pivot, and I'm moving the knife around to chop up the bits and pieces. Now with chopping garlic this way, there's no real like rhyme or reason to it. We're just getting little bits and pieces. And we gently clean up the sides. I'm gonna check my veggies real quick, see how they're doing. So with veggies like this, there's a lot of water in it that has to cook off, but at the same time, if you smell it kind of burning a little bit, don't be afraid to deglaze the pan with just a little bit of water. That's highly advisable. So right now I'm getting a bit of a char on my veggies, but I don't want things to like burn. So leave it as is, and we'll use this little cup here, add a little water, and just a splash. So you can already hear it like boiling and steaming, and then we just give a little stir to loosen up any burnt bits that are stuck to the bottom. And once again, we only want to use wood or plastic, but preferably wood, never metal. So you can probably see it, all the bubbles down there. And that's exactly what we want to see too, because that means that the skillet is nice and hot. It's adding a nice little char to our veggies, but it's also steaming through the rootier things like our carrots and, well, yeah, just our carrots this time around. All right, I'm gonna throw these little garlic pieces away. Now, as we cook, it's always good practice to clean your things as you go. So as soon as you finish like your bowl, wash it, you know, it makes a world of difference. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and bring my cutting board over to my pan. Scrape straight across, get all that garlic in there, and very gently run my knife along the side to get all the bits off. And we're not gonna stir it in yet. We're gonna let it wait a second. Now, I wanted to add a bit more of a kind of like an Indian flavor to this, just because I'm in the mood for Indian tonight. So what I have is an assortment of loose herbs and spices. Let me bring this into the light. So what I've got here is cumin, allspice, and coriander. But if you have your own spices in your cabinet, go for it. That's kind of like the plus side of having the summer vegetable medley casserole ratatouille for dinner, is it tastes good with anything. So whatever spices you like, however salty you might want it, it's up for game. All right, so with all these spices, what we need to do is use this mortar and pestle to kind of break it up and release some of those oils that are trapped inside of the husks. Now with the cardamom, so these guys, the outside is really hard. So after I crush it a few times, I'm gonna pick up one of the outsides, put it aside, because this type of stuff doesn't really break down unless you like slowly simmer or like boil for a very long time. So just to help things move along, I don't know if you can see this, but there's like, oops, little tiny seeds inside of this cardamom pod, and that's what we want. So right now we're just getting rid of the outside, because once again, that's very hard and it just gets like really chewy. And then like whenever you take a bite of something, you just have to keep like picking it out of your teeth or something. Oh, this one's not opened yet, so we'll crush it. Now, I always like using a mortar and pestle just because it makes me feel like, I don't know, like I'm a witch, you know, casting like a spell of good fortune or something, or maybe I'm wanting to have like a beautiful dream with a moon goddess or something. But beyond just the fantasy stuff, it's amazing for grinding up herbs, especially dried herbs like this. So as you can see, first I was pounding and moving up, going down, moving up, and now I'm kind of like stirring. And with a mortar and pestle, you want to be, you know, delicate enough that you're not spraying all the herbs outside of the mortar, so outside of the bowl, but you know, have enough pressure that you're breaking everything up. That looks good. We don't have to be like a fine powder. Coming back over here, add our delicious savory herbs, and we're gonna stir it in. And they love the heat that releases the oil that's been stored in them as they've been dried. Now I'm gonna lower the heat back to a little bit below mid-range. And I can feel as I stir that the veggies are sticking a little bit and we don't want it to burn. So I'm gonna add a little bit more water. Just a little bit. Hear that bubbling. Stir it in. Now while this cooks down a little bit more, I think I want to add some fresh herbs. So you don't want to ever leave your stovetop unattended, so you don't want to ever just like leave and nobody's watching it. So now is a great time to find a buddy to be fully in charge of this and this, so the stove, the food, while somebody else picks the herbs. So I'm okay because I know everything there is to know about my stovetop, but my herbs and, well, my vegetables. So I'm very quickly gonna pop on outside to pick some herbs. Ooh, it's getting dark. I'm gonna turn the light on. Swink. So yeah, I'm not sure how well you can see out here, but I'm gonna pick some sage and some basil and maybe a little bit of rosemary. So I don't know if you can see super well. I'll do my best to explain just with my words. But whenever we pick things like herbs, we want to go down to, try to get this into the light, to the base of the stem next to like the largest stem. And you know, maybe I'll do another how-to video when I harvest herbs and things like of that sort in the morning that we can actually see. But essentially you want to make sure that you pick your herbs in such a way that the plant keeps growing appropriately and that you don't like stunt the growth or, heaven forbid, you like kill the plant. So yeah, maybe I'll do another how-to video of like harvesting herbs and picking things from the garden. All right, so I've got my my sage, and maybe we'll leave rosemary. I'm gonna do some bit of a sun-damaged basil over here. Big old clump. Nice big clumps. Yeah, I feel like some fresh herbs will be delightful in our dinner tonight. So if you've got fresh herbs, I highly recommend adding them. All right, heading back inside. Turn the light off. Alrighty, in we go. Oh, into the light. Okay, so we got our handful of herbs, so just sage and basil. Now, if your vegetables are growing like out in the garden, they might have some dirt on them, so it's a good idea to rinse them off. Now, mine have been growing inside of individual pots, so there's really nothing to wash off, so I'm not going to bother. But you do you. Up to you. All right, so same thing, bunch them together, having my knuckles be bent, being mindful of how close my fingertips are to the knife blade, slowly cutting down, and then I'm going to do it crosswise, so perpendicular to my initial cuts. Put my hand safely on top to help with the pressure, and group all of them up in my big old fist. Head over to my veggies, sprinkle them in, do another stir, and we're gonna let this cook down just a little bit more, maybe for 5-ish minutes, we'll see. But we want to get a little bit more of a char on our yellow zucchini and on our beans, and get some more caramelization on our onions. But once again, we don't want to burn that garlic. We don't want to burn the dried herbs we just put in. So that's why we wait until last to do that. Alrighty, should be good for now. So I will see you in about 5 minutes or so. So as you can see, this is cooked down a pretty decent amount. And I've been thinking about what direction I want to go with my flavor profile. Because with this, once again, you can dress it up really however you want to. But I'm thinking a little bit more like Indo-Asian style. So I added a little bit of honey for some sweetness, and I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of, it's called essentially like a black chili pepper. That's the best way to put it. But this, it's like a smoky flavor, spicy, not too tangy. But for your own style, if you don't want something that's like too weird or too spicy or tangy, whatever. I feel like what we have going on here would be delicious with just a little bit of salt, pepper added to, you know, that garlic and the onion and all of that. But once again, I love my spices. So I'm going to come back over here and very carefully chop up this dried chili into pieces. And I'm going to keep all those seeds because I want it to be a bit spicy. Now, if you ever add anything that is spicy, like a jalapeno, like actually spicy, wait until the last moment to add it to anything on the stovetop, because the steam will become, essentially it'll burn to breathe. So you don't want to, you know, create noxious gases in your home and everyone's coughing and sneezing. That's not a good place to be. So what I'm doing is I'm saving this spicy dried chili for the very last step of the main ingredients I'm adding. So putting all that stuff very carefully into my pan and set that aside to wash soon. Put this away. Remember, always be mindful cleaning up, putting things away as you use them. All right, I'm gonna stir in my hot pepper. And rather than adding much salt, I'm gonna add soy sauce to mine. But if you wanna add salt, go for it. So here's soy sauce. It's a big gallon because cheaper to buy in bulk than the smaller ones. A couple splashes, probably the equivalent of like, I don't know, 2 tablespoons. Give it a stir. And to kind of like further my Indo-Asian influenced dinner, I'm gonna add a little bit of fish sauce. Now, once again, you do not have to do this, but it's just my own preference. And once again, that's kind of the great thing about summer vegetable casserole or ratatouille. You can change that flavor however you want. Now, if you do have fish sauce, use it sparingly. Now, does it smell good? No. Does it taste good? I think so. But only in very, very small amounts because it is potent stuff. Stir this up. Now, it seems to be a consistency with cooking that it's a success if you have salt, fat, and acid. And so we have salt with our some salt and soy sauce, fat with the coconut oil, and acid, we still need something. So I'm gonna add some lemon juice. And now you could add a teeny bit of vinegar if you wanted, or some lime if you had it. But that little bit of acid will help to brighten the flavors, make it a bit like more tangy on the tongue. So I've got some pre-sliced lemon here. And once again, if I didn't have lemon, I would use like vinegar, balsamic vinegar, apple cider vinegar, that type of thing. I'm gonna squeeze it right over the top. That way it's, this dish is gonna be a little spicy, a little bit sweet because of that honey that I added. Have that complexity of all those delicious herbs mixed with those fresh veggies. And you know, I don't eat meat except for like fish and sea critters and all that, but I feel like this would be good with something like, I don't know, cubed chicken. I don't know about hamburger. I feel like that wouldn't be too good. I don't know though. You can let me know. Give it a try. Fill me in. What did you think? And right now, it might not be the prettiest of things, but my gosh, is it gonna pack a flavor. So I'm gonna go and turn the oven off. Let this cool down enough for it to be like eating temperature. Then I'm gonna spoon up some of the rice, and once again, I cooked my rice with cardamom, garlic, and star anise, but you could use instant rice or pasta or couscous, and then spoon all this on top of it, make something super tasty. So, all right, I'm gonna turn my camera off and let this cool down a little bit as I turn my oven off, and then wash all my dishes, and then we'll go from there. All right. Okay, so it's been maybe like 3-ish minutes. I just really wanted to wait for this to cool down enough that it wasn't still bubbling. It'll still be very hot, but still be slightly edible. So took the top off. You can see all the herbs that I've added. You don't really want to eat this because it's not really for eating, so to say. Get a little scoop of rice, a little bit more. Break it up a little bit, and then we're gonna add our vegetable mix. Get a lot of those carrot greens. Oops, there we go. Big old scoops. And we want to add a little bit more acid, I think. So I've got some more of this lemon left, but you can add a little vinegar if you want, or if you like it as is. Don't worry about it. Do your thing. A little shake. And I got some basil here. I'm gonna tear up, place on top, kind of sprinkle it. Ooh, I wonder if I have some sesame seeds. That could be good. A lot of spices in here. Oops. I feel like, is that some? Nope, that's turmeric. Get out of here. Nope, maybe up here. Oh, we got a lot of black pepper. Got sriracha. Hot sauce. Nope, none that I can find. I don't know, it'll still be good. All right, we got our chopsticks, because I love eating with chopsticks. Give it a little stir. Mix the flavors together. Take a little bite. I'm gonna get some rice too. See how the flavors are. This is a great way to see if you need to add more salt or not. It's better to add than feel like, oh no, there's too much salt, because you really can't fix that. Let's see. Yeah. Perfect. Okay. So there you have it. You don't have to follow this recipe step by step. It's essentially designed to use all of that wonderful summer vegetable produce. So the way that you season it, totally up to you. And once again, you can eat it as is, or with rice, or couscous, or pasta, or even shoot, what's the word? Darn it. It's another grain that's pretty tasty. I don't know. Anyways, you can really eat it with anything. So yeah, if you give it a try, let me know. All right. See you later.